On behalf of the Council, I'm proud to present the Theodore Saloutos Award. The Theodore Saloutos Award is named after the late UCLA professor who founded and presided over the Save Cyprus Council, later our own American Hellenic Council. This award honors distinguished members of the Hellenic-American community and philhellenes for their extraordinary devotion to Hellenism, its ideals, tradition, culture, and the rule of law. Tonight, we could not possibly have a better candidate than Professor Stephen Miller. I'd like to direct, thank you, please. I'd like to direct your attention to a video about Professor Miller's extraordinary contribution to Hellenism.
My name is Stephen Miller, and since 1973, I've had the privilege of directing University of California's excavations at Nemea under the aegis of the American School of Classical Studies at Athens and the Ministry of Culture of Greece. Recently, a new discovery has emerged from Nemea, one that I never anticipated. Not a discovery of an antiquity, but of the human spirit. In 1995, a group of local people, farmers, lawyers, bankers, doctors, came together at Nemea to found the Society for the Revival of the Nemean Games. It was their notion that the discoveries that I had made at Nemea could provide the base for an international festival where anyone and everyone could participate.
It's Miller who puts Nemea on our screens and on the world screen.
I had never thought that I would reorganize games. I have a revival of the Nemean Games. That was the furthest thing from my mind when I began here 40 years ago. There were hundreds of local volunteers. People from the village here, people from Athens, from Corinth, who came and rolled up their sleeves, and swept the floor of the stadium, and helped put the tent up. And then what happens?
I'm from Peru. Chinese Taipei.
London.
United States. From Maldives.
California.
Brazil. From Estonia.
From Connecticut.
From Uzbekistan. Finland.
Πόδα, παραπόδα, έτοιμοι, κάπιτε.
Feeling 3,000-year-old dirt beneath my toes was marvelous.
Anybody can come and run. And some of us are not very good runners.
It's a great privilege to be here. This is really a wonderful recreation of the ancient Nemean Games.
It has been a great pleasure and an honor to be here today at the Nemean Games.
I know how to say in Greek, Harumini. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Greece, thank you all.
Professor Miller could not be with us tonight due to health reasons. However, he did want to address us, and for that reason, despite his health issues, he personally traveled to Nemea and filmed an emotional video dedicated to this night.
Χαίρετε. Καλημέρα. Καλώς ήρθατε στην αρχαία Νεμέα. Βρισκόμαστε μπροστά στον ναό του Νεμαίωδεως, όπου στην αρχαιότητα είχαμε αγώνες, τα Νέμια, που ήταν μαζί με τα Ολύμπια, τα Πύθια στους Δελφούς και τα ίσια ήταν τα 4 Πανελλήνια που ήταν για τους καλύτερους αθλητές. Εδώ όταν ήρθα εγώ ήταν μπροστά εδώ 3 κολόνες, όχι τα νέα που βλέπετε, θα το πούμε για αυτά. Τώρα υπάρχει ένας αρχαιολογικός χώρος, υπάρχει ένα μουσείο που είμαι υπερήφανος για το μουσείο, υπάρχει ένα αρχαίο στάδιο που αποκαλύψαμε, υπάρχει κάθε 4 χρόνια τα νέμια, μια αναβίωση των νέων αγώνων. Δηλαδή, έχουμε προσφέρει εδώ στην ΑΜΕΑ από το 1973 που ήρθα εγώ για να εξηγήσω την ανασκαφή. Ίσως έπρεπε να σας είπα ότι λέγομαι Μίλλερ Στέφανος, είμαι συνταξιούχος καθηγητής αρχαιολογίας από το Πανεπιστημίο της Καλιφόρνιας στο Berkeley και ο ανασκαφής εδώ από το 1973. I've been speaking in Greek because I know that you are Hellenic, but it would be easier for me to speak in English now. I've mentioned the different things that I've done here over the last 45 years, and I want to make 2 points about them. First, is that my goal here at NMEA has been, to be sure, has been to excavate, to bring to light more traces of ancient Greece, but it has also been to share those traces with other people. In other words, it's not just a scientific research project here, but an educational project. And for that reason, and this leads me to the second point, it's important that NMEA becomes known as far as it can. I'm very proud of the fact that in 1973, we had 1 visitor here, 1 visitor all summer long. Last year, we were in the range of 60,000 visitors, and will probably be more than that this year if the world terrorism situation doesn't damage us too much. All of this work that has happened here, the purchase of the property for the archaeological park, the construction of the museum, the excavation of the stadium and of the site around here has taken place because of the generosity of private donors, mostly in the United States of America. And this leads me to a story that I think will be of particular and even personal interest to many of you. In 1979, after I had been working here for digging, actually for more than 5 years, I'm back in Berkeley in my office and the phone rings in September, late September. And it's Nick Petras, a congressman, a state senator from Oakland, who had been supportive of my work here from the beginning. He said, Steve, he said, I've just been to NMEA. I've been to Greece, and I finally got to go to NMEA, see what you're doing. It's wonderful. I'm very pleased with the way the museum is going. He said, but why don't you reconstruct the temple? He said, all the columns are lying around there where they've fallen. Wouldn't it be an easy thing to put them back up? And I said, oh, Nick, I said, I don't think I can even consider that. I've got to find the money, because all of this is done with private contributions through the university, to be sure, but it's all private money. I have to find the money to finish the museum, to excavate the site, to buy the students their tickets so that they can come, all the rest of the money. I don't see how I could even begin to find enough funds to put the Temple of Zeus back together again. Nick said, let me ask you something. He said, how many donors you have? I said, about 180 now. He said, how many are Greek? I said, 2. You and 1 other. He said, I thought so. He said, you are not Greek. You don't belong to the church. There is not a way you're going to get the Greek-American community to back your work at NMEA. He said, but let's do this. Let's start a committee for the reconstruction of the temple. He said, you and I will go to cultural societies, to church groups, and you will talk about the reconstruction, and I will talk about the money. He said, but in all of this, you will never talk about the temple of Zeus. You will just talk about the temple. And I said, okay. And so we started raising money to begin to put the temple back together again. Nick had success. One of those people that he brought in early on was Angelos Tsakopoulos from Sacramento, and through Angelos Spanos, Alex Spanos became interested as well. And you can see that on this stele that commemorates the donors and the people who have participated in the reconstruction of the temple, there are many, many Greek names. A lot of them are Greek-American. And that includes Nick Petrus, the man I was just talking about. It includes somebody else. Because when we began the project in 1979, 1980, we went to Southern California, and Nick made contact with Stefanos Stylianides, who was a youngish man, really in the prime of his life, and he undertook with great enthusiasm to persuade the Greek Americans of Southern California to become involved with the temple. Unfortunately, there was a tragic death. A few months later, I was here in Nemea, and I received a telegram from his widow saying that he had been lost to us. His loss has been great, and I know that his family felt it deeply, and I'm sure that his brother-in-law, who is there with you today, Jim Dimitriou, is a part of the feeling of loss. Finally, I want to end by saying how happy and pleased and grateful I am that you are honoring me tonight with the Theodore Saloutos Award. I feel a certain affinity for him because of the fact that both of us worked very hard for Cyprus. And I want to tell you why it was that I worked for Cyprus. In 1974, the first season of full excavations here, I had down here around the temple I had 4 different crews working and 1 up in the stadium. I could tell where the stadium had to be, but there was no knowing how deeply it would be buried. We started a trench 20 meters long and 10 meters wide, and we dug and we dug and we dug. And after 12 weeks of digging, we had found nothing. At a depth of over 6 meters, no pottery, no coins, no sign of human life. The people here in the village were getting a little impatient. They said, yeah, here's a smart American who comes in, and what does he do? He digs a big hole. And I was getting nervous because I was going to have to go back to Berkeley and go to my donors and show them how I'd spent their money. And if all I had to show for it was a big hole in the stadium, that was not going to be satisfactory. We had just enough money to keep the crew on in the stadium for 1 more week. And so we kept digging, and that last week, the rest of the crews had stopped down here, but up in the stadium, the crew continued digging. On Tuesday of that last week, we found a coin, and then we found the base of a statue. And on Friday morning, at a little before 7 o'clock, we found a bit of the curved water channel that went around the track, so we knew at what level we were. And later that day, we dug out into the ramp that we had been digging down so that we could wheel the dirt out as we dug it. We dug out in the ramp, and there, at a depth of nearly 7 meters, was the starting line. Just a small little chunk of the starting line, but enough to show that we were indeed in the stadium. That day will always live in my memory because of the discovery, and because the next morning, Saturday morning, after we had made the discovery, Cyprus was invaded. And the mood in the village turned 180 degrees. I went up on the ridge between the stadium and the village that evening and listened to the wailings of the women in the village, not knowing the fate of their sons and their brothers who had been mobilized to go off to confront the invaders. It passed. We've gotten back on a more even keel, although recently, I wonder. But I've always felt that Saloutos and I were certainly on the same wavelength, albeit for different reasons. Finally, I want to apologize to you that I'm not there physically with you this evening. I wish I could be. The distance is great, and every year it seems to get greater. I think that probably is a function of the fact that my age gets greater, and I have a few physical problems simply moving. But know, please, that I will be with you in spirit, and I will lift a glass of Nemean wine to your health. Latte namasite.